Welcome back to the Believer's Tent podcast, a place we grow in faith, find purpose, and walk in truth. We're in episode 8 in the podcast series, Journey to Intimacy with God. You can check out my previous podcast series, The Foundations of a Growing Believer. We talked about a lot there, and our advice is to start with that podcast series before continuing on this one. We're in episode 8, titled Obedience, the Proof of Intimacy. In my previous videos in this podcast series, I've talked about obedience in some subheadings, trying to explain a few things, but I decided to make it a whole topic because it's actually essential in our Christian growth and journey to intimacy with God, literally. So I'll be explaining obedience as a love language, obedience as love that shows itself, obedience from relationship, not rules. Basically, I'm talking about a lot, and it's going to be emphasizing on obedience. One of the easiest things to say as a Christian or as a believer is, I love God. We can say it through worship, we can say it in prayer, we can say it as confession, we even post it in our social media handles sometimes. But there's something Jesus said so direct. In John chapter 14 verse 15, he says, if you love me, you keep my commandments. He didn't say, if you love me, you sing louder or you post it more. He didn't say, if you love me, you go to church every Sunday. He said, if you love me, you obey me. Because love isn't proven by expression. Love is proven by obedience. And here's the truth about obedience. Obedience is the love language of God. Love is the root. Obedience is the fruit. So maybe the question isn't just, do you love God? The real question is, does your life show it? Meaning, saying you love God is not enough now. Trying to act like you love God is not enough. The only way to prove your love for God, not the only way, a way to prove your love for God and to show that you genuinely love Him and you're journeying to intimacy with Him is by obeying Him step by step, into levels, into rank. The fact is that you have to obey Him consistently. It's possible to worship with your lips, but walk in disobedience with your life. It's possible to talk about loving God, yet keep ignoring His voice when He speaks, yet keep ignoring His direction when He gives it. That just shows that you're not valuing Him, even though you say you love Him, even though you think you love Him. You don't value His words, you don't value His instructions, you don't value His commandments. Now, when you truly love God, when intimacy goes beyond just emotions, obedience flows naturally. Meaning, as you keep going in intimacy with God, obedience not becomes a task. It doesn't become a task. It doesn't become a routine. It doesn't become something that you're conscious of, but it flows naturally because you love God and you're intimate with Him. You don't obey God because you're afraid of Him. You obey Him because you trust Him. Obedience flows from relationship, not rules. When obedience feels heavy or hard, it's usually because we've lost sight of who we are obeying. Rules without relationship always leads to rebellion. That is, they give you 10 commandments, they give you lots of rules to follow, and the nature we are practicing as human beings without finding Christ is the fallen nature of man, which is what Adam started. So it's not really in us to obey something when we're not in alignment with that, when our spirits have not been transformed, when our minds have not been renewed. So just like seeing a lot of rules and a lot of laws that are against our own personal being. No, but when you come into your intimacy with God, when you choose Jesus Christ as your Lord and personal Savior, obedience no longer becomes rules, it becomes relationship. So when obedience feels hard or heavy, it's usually because we've lost sight of who we are obeying. Rules without relationships always leads to rebellion. But when you know God's heart, His commandments stop feeling like burdens. They start feeling like an invitation to come closer to Him. Think of it this way. When someone you deeply love asks you to do something, you don't do it because you have to. You do it because you want to. But if someone that you don't know intimately or personally or have a relationship with asks you to do a task that you feel is a burden or that you feel is not in alignment with who you are as a person, you wouldn't do it, or you may even do it because you're afraid of the person or because you just have to. But it's not from intimacy. That's what happens when you're in intimacy with God. The more you know His heart, the more you trust His ways. Even when they don't make sense. He may say wait, when you're ready to move. He may say forgive when you want to hold the grudge. He may say let go when your emotions are screaming hold on. But every instruction from God is a step forward to freedom. It's a step forward to intimacy. It's a step forward to maturity and growth. And when you work closely with Him, you begin to realize obedience isn't God taking something from you. It's God protecting something in you. Let me give an analogy to explain deeper. Have you ever used a GPS on a road you've never driven before? Like, have you ever used Google Map or Apple Map to locate somewhere that you've never been before? You don't know what's coming. You just follow the voice. You just follow the instruction. You just follow the direction. If it says turn left, you obey, even when the turn looks strange or unnecessary. You follow because you trust that this voice sees something that you can't. You trust that this Google Map has explored somewhere that you have not. That's what walking with God looks like. God created this universe. God orchestrated every single place on this earth that we are in. If He gives you direction, He knows everything, mind you. If He gives you direction, you should trust that He knows what's best for you and that He loves you more than anyone could even possibly love you. When God is running your direction or when He's giving you instructions, you should understand that you don't always get the full map. You just get the next step. He rarely tells you why, but He always tells you what. And that's where intimacy grows. In the space between your questions and your obedience, faith isn't built in clarity, it's built in trust. So everything, every instruction, every circumstance that you find yourself, you must not always understand it. There must not always be clarity. But the proof that you have faith and trust in God or in that instruction that God has given to you, it's trust. To prove that you are willing to follow Him, even if you don't understand what's going on, is trust. And that trust comes when you have developed an intimate relationship with God. And when you begin to obey God without your full understanding, you are saying, God, I don't have to know where you are taking me to. I just have to know you are the one leading. You just have to be sure that it's God that's leading you to this direction. No matter what the direction or the instruction looks like, you don't need to care what it is. What you need to be sure is that it's God that is leading you to this. And as long as you are sure that God is leading you to this direction, there's nothing that can come your way to obey Him. In 1 Samuel 15 verse 22, Samuel told Saul to obey is better than sacrifice. At first glance, this verse sounds simple, but is deeply revealing. Saul offered God something that looked holy, a sacrifice, but it wasn't what God asked for. And that's what many believers do today. We give God our songs, we give Him our offerings, our time in church, yet we still disobey His voice, which is what matters, in the private corners of our heart. But God doesn't want activity, God wants alignment. He's not impressed by how much we do for Him. He's moved by how much we trust Him. There are a lot of people saying a lot of things about God, and they may even say the same thing about God. And you should understand that God is not going to rank how much you love Him just by saying this, because a lot of people have said this same thing that you are saying to God even before you were born. So what is going to judge how much you love Him or how important you take Him is by trusting Him when the situation doesn't look trustable. So it's now beyond our human insights, it's now beyond our wisdom as human beings, but by our spiritual faith we have in God, which is unseen, but there is evidence of substance to hope for. God is moved by how much we trust Him. Sometimes we think sacrifice is the 100% basis to say that we are intimate with God or we love Him because of how much we think we've done. Sacrifice says, look what I did for you. But obedience says, look how much I trust you. And trust is what intimacy is made of. Let me use Abraham's example, for instance. Obedience that reveals God. Abraham was a man who loved God deeply. One day, God asked him to do something unimaginable. Take your son, your only son that He gave you, Isaac, the one you love, and offer him as a sacrifice. Everything about that instruction looked wrong. How could a loving God ask for that very thing he promised you, knowing how much you love that thing? But Abraham obeyed anyways, not because it made sense, but because he trusted in the one who spoke. This is something that a lot of believers are missing in the modern day. They think that because God is all loving and kind, he is restricted by doing some certain things for you to prove your intimacy to him, or for you to prove your trust and love for him. But no, God made everything. He can take everything. He's the potter and we are the clay. He can mold us into anything that he chooses to, and we will simply follow his instructions. We will simply follow however he molds us into alignment. So when Abraham lifted the knife about to sacrifice his son, God stopped him and revealed himself as Jehovah Jireh, the Lord who provides. God's obedience can lead us to him revealing himself. God is moved. This simply means God is moved by how much we obey. I don't think a lot of believers understand the power of obedience coming to intimacy with God. God revealed himself just because of how much you obeyed him. You need to drop everything aside and obey God. The earthly things and all those don't matter. God just wants to see how much you trust him, no matter the circumstance, no matter what the situation looks like. God revealed himself as Jehovah Jireh, the Lord who provides. The revelation didn't come through prayer. The revelation didn't come through sacrifice or worship or fasting. It came through obedience. There are some dimensions of God that you will never see and you will never know until you say yes to God. Some blessings are hidden behind obedience. Some doors won't open until you trust God enough to walk, until you trust God enough to walk through the unknown. But let's be real. Sometimes obedience hurts. Sometimes it's not easy at all. It might mean letting go of a relationship. It might mean deleting a habit out of your life. It might mean changing the people you speak to, or walking away from something that feels good, but you know this isn't God. It's not always easy, but love doesn't stop when it's uncomfortable. God isn't trying to make your life miserable. He's shaping your heart to look more like his. Every no you say to the flesh is a yes you give to your future. The deeper your intimacy grows, the more God will test your trust. He will start asking, do you love me enough to let go? Do you love me more enough to stop this? He wants you to show how much you love him. The only way you can show God, this is how much I love you, is just when he gives that commandment in your spirit. You know that this was what God says, and you obey in an instant. You've proven so much without even having to labor or to do so much, but you've proven so much just by obeying that simple instruction that God gives you. That's where real intimacy begins, when your love is strong enough to surrender, when your love is strong enough to submit, when your love is strong enough to give up certain things. Now, I want to explain obedience as a love language. Obedience isn't perfection. You need to understand that obedience isn't perfection. You're not perfect because you obey. Obedience is trust. It's saying, Lord, I may not get it all right, but my heart is yours. It's surrender to God. And each time you say yes, even in the small things, you are proving that your love isn't just emotional. Your love is transformational. Obedience is what keeps intimacy alive. It's what keeps your heart tender before God, because you know he can request for anything at any moment or given time. And the more you obey God, the clearer his voice becomes. Love says, I feel close to you. Obedience says, I'll follow you. And that's the proof of true intimacy. When your love for God turns into a lifestyle, not just a language. Obedience is the bridge between knowing God and becoming more like him. It's not about perfection, performance, or religious efforts. It's about love that trusts enough to act. So if you've been praying, Lord, I want to know you more. Lord, I want to become more like you. Maybe the next step isn't just another prayer. Maybe it's obedience to the last thing he told you. Because intimacy isn't proven in what you say, it's proven in what you obey. Thank you for staying to the end. I believe this video has blessed someone. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.